now on Nights with Steve Price, the Courses and Careers Show with Danny Bielik. Thanks to Management Consultancy International. Go to mci.edu.au.
Well, Danny Bielik joins you. Danny, nice to see you.
How are you, Michael?
I can't complain, and you're well?
Extremely well.
How are your Greek government bonds, they holding up?
You know, I tell you what, Greece in a whole heap of trouble, but it was very interesting to listen to that interview before the break because productivity is a major problem for Australia and we can't ignore it. And, of course, that's one area that I focus on quite regularly, and I'm always pushing employers and I'm pushing individuals and I'm pushing government to say that really one of the major focuses, one of the major keys for productivity drivers in Australia is education. The more education that employers put into their staff, the better their productivity is. The more individuals educate themselves, the higher their productivity is, and the more attractive they are to employers, the more they will earn over their lifetime.
I mean, there is one caveat in the whole discussion about driving further productivity, and that is that, well, it certainly comes from elements of the left. They say you can tip into exploitation. There is a fine line between driving further productivity and ending up exploiting the workforce beyond what is reasonably required. It seems Australia, though, is nowhere near that point.
Well, look, it is absolutely left-wing propaganda because at the end of the day, productivity for somebody to work for somebody else has to be a two-way street. And in fact, in Australia, what has happened, if you speak with a lot of employers, you will find out that tenure of employees is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter as people are educating themselves, and they're going and improving their lot by going for jobs with higher qualifications and higher salary. And in fact, the productivity is really driven actually in the Australian economy by exactly that sort of activity, which is why we have one of the highest rates of salaries per employee anywhere in the world. We still have a reasonably low but slightly troubling rate of unemployment given our circumstances in Australia. And really that sort of mobility that we have in the workforce, the fact that we've got so many people in their own individual businesses, the fact that we rely so much on individually business-owned tradespeople and those sorts of things gives the Australian economy the flexibility to be able to be more productive than many other economies. That will hold us well into the future and allow us to absorb certain shocks, but there's actually a limit that we're reaching now where we need to climb higher up the productivity chain.
Now, tonight we're really going to focus on family businesses. In fact, I wouldn't mind, and I'd no doubt you as well, Danny, wouldn't mind hearing from people with their own family business stories, good, bad or ugly. But it was interesting to read a little précis you shot through earlier saying that family businesses account for about 70% of all businesses in the country. That's not a surprise, but the average number of employees is 372. Now, if you would have, pub trivia said, what's the average number of employees per family business, I would have said, 6, 8.
Yep.
372?
Yeah, and in fact that statistic came from Family Business Australia, which is the peak body for family businesses, and came out of a professional survey. So it is a reliable statistic. And you have to remember, Michael, that family businesses in Australia are an extremely productive part of our economy. They are 70% of the number of businesses in Australia. Some of them are extremely large. Westfield, for example, is a massive Australian business. Linfox, owned by Lindsay Fox and his family, a massive Australian business.
Visy with the Pratt family.
Visy, absolutely. You've got, whether you may or may not include him, Rupert Murdoch, and all of those sorts of things. In fact, Fairfax, you could argue, that originally was a family company and still has elements of the Fairfax family in there. Meriton with the Triggerbox. And, some of these are extraordinarily successful. I did a little bit of research and found that the oldest family business on record is a Japanese company that is over 600 years old. So some of these things actually have enormous amounts of longevity, where you've got families that go through generations in different roles in the business, not always running the business. And of course, then you've got outliers, you've got the strange ones that are still very successful but still have some fractures inside the businesses. Gina Reinhardt, of course, being the perfect example.
Hancock, yeah. Actually, it wouldn't be a bad idea to throw the lines open at this point and see, from our listening base anyway, when Steve's got a big audience, what is the oldest family business that we've got in the listening base tonight. I mean, that could be quite interesting. I assume there are some people that are part of family businesses listening now that go back past 1800.
Yep. Yeah, and I would assume that's the case. In fact, I saw one story here, and I couldn't quite work out how old it is, but Akubra is a family business, and that is actually 100 years. And in fact, Stephen Keir, who is the current CEO or managing director of Akubra, the famous hat-making company in Australia, says that it's taken them 100 years to get their brand right. And in fact, he's a great-grandchild of the founder of Akubra. For those sorts of people, there's an enormous amount of stress about making sure that not only can they continue to grow the business and improve their productivity and all of those sorts of things, employ more Australians, sell more stuff to more people, that's all terrific. But protecting that brand, his father worked in the business, grandfather, and his great-grandfather, who'd want to be the generation that stuffed it up?
Well, this is the thing. Succession, no doubt, is the biggest challenge in any family business because no doubt there is so much currency invested in the founder's name. It's very difficult to then hand a business which is named particularly after an individual or a surname off to some other random. It is best going down the family line if the capability's there, but you've got, say, 3 sons and 1 daughter, or vice versa. Who takes? I mean, the Murdochs are going through this debate right now with News Corp. Who gets the CEO-ship? How do you divest it all out? This is probably where they crumble, isn't it? This
is exactly where the fracture happens. And in fact, Australia is in a bit of a strange situation at the moment because you've got to think about what's happening to population over time. So a lot of family businesses came out of the baby boomers. Well, guess what's happening to the baby boomers? They're all reaching their 70s, if not have already tipped into their 70s. So they have either retired or are retiring. So this issue of succession, passing it on to the next generation or otherwise giving the business to somebody else to operate is a major issue for the Australian economy right now. As you said, 70% of businesses in Australia are family businesses. But actually there is an issue because really only 41% of people who are at transition stage for family businesses, only 41% plan to pass it on to other family members. The businesses that survive, Michael, and the businesses who are very good at employing other people, because you've got to think about a successful business employs lots and lots and lots of non-family people. MCI is actually a really good example. MCI, Management Consultancy International, is actually a family-owned organisation. Yes, we do training for large corporations and government and lots of individuals and all these sorts of things, but it is actually owned by Dr. Denise Meyerson and her family. Now, they have chosen to employ from outside of the business. They've chosen to employ me, for example, as their chief executive officer. Now, I come from outside of the business, but we still have members of that family being able to operate inside the business, and we've established it in such a way we have a professional board, and this is something that Family Business Australia highly recommends, making sure you have a professional board with non-executive directors, people who aren't related to the family on that board, so that you can actually ensure the longevity of any business, and it works extremely well.
Is that something, though, that you do once you're established? I would assume most businesses start small and most family businesses start between, for example, a husband and a wife.
Yep.
They have the catalyst of the idea. They put the house on the line to fund the initial concept. They take a risk, most fail, but the ones that succeed grow from there. It's sort of what point you diversify the makeup of the company to start bringing in these so-called foreign names and diversify the board and start to whittle away your own control.
In fact, it is absolutely an issue, and you find that for the successful businesses, and Michael, we're talking about some small tradie businesses that might employ 2 or 3 apprentice plumbers or carpenters. We're talking about small cafes and mixed goods stores and convenience stores. These are the sorts of businesses that are family businesses, and they're the backbone of the Australian economy. At what point do you actually get professional help? Well, you don't have to necessarily pay tens of thousands of dollars a year to have a professional board member. There are actually plenty of other ways of, I guess, simulating that inside your business.
Oh, okay.
Family Business Australia is a great resource for this sort of thing, so you can have a look on FBA's website. And there are plenty of mentoring groups where, for example, people from other small businesses or other family businesses will act as pseudo board members or advisory board members, and then you would do that for other people and vice versa, and you'd meet on a monthly basis and go, okay, well, you might think this was the problem, but actually, have you thought about this? And this is the part where, you know, family businesses often have trouble stopping talking about business. So you go home and you're sitting around the dinner table. What are you talking about? You're talking about your business. Actually becomes a little bit unhealthy, but it also becomes not only is it unhealthy for your family relationships, but actually it is a problem for the business itself because you can't step back. You don't have that external view, and that's what external people bring. And it actually doesn't matter what size your business is. Maybe even your external accountant. You know, you meet with him or her once every couple of months and just chew over some of these issues. So there are plenty of ways of dealing with this, and these are the sorts of things that help businesses stop failing. They're the sorts of things that help businesses grow and help them obviously employ more people and become more productive.
What's in a name, though? To sort of coin that famous phrase, we talk about succession, we talk about all of this diversification and the like. If you had, Bielik Consultancy Proprietary Limited, and one day you wanted to hand that down, there is a lot of capital invested knowing that Danny Bielik in Bielik Consultancy, Pty Ltd, is the brains behind it. He knows the business back to front. Then Joe Smith comes in at your recommendation. Well, people think, well, who's Joe Smith? He's not really Bielik. He's not part of that brand. At what point is it maybe wise? Because a lot of companies, I suppose, start out as, Bielik Pty Ltd, and then they get big. At what point do you change the name? Can you change the name?
It is actually a really big challenge.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, it's a problem for a whole bunch of businesses. And again, I think you need that sort of thing. You need to have a look at the context of the business. For example, are people listening tonight because it's Michael McLaren, or are people listening tonight because it's 2GB? And this is a problem for radio stations and TV stations. Certainly became a problem for the BBC. Jeremy Clarkson became too big, and were they watching because it was Jeremy Clarkson or because it was the BBC? And it's a really, really big problem, and it's a big problem for a small business, and it could be, Danny's shoeshine business. That's terrific. Well, does it stop being Danny when Danny stops being it? And it really depends. It's a classical marketing issue. And again, these are the sorts of things. If I was just good at shoe shining, I'm probably then not therefore good at marketing. So you know what? Let's ask some experts. Let's go and have a look around our networks of people and start asking those questions. This is the really successful family businesses. Don't just think that around the dinner table or around the kitchen table is where all the intellect is. They realise and they capitalise on the fact that there are so many people out there, and the diversity of views is what actually will bring you the success. And so
you got to have a
longevity.
kitchen table and a boardroom table.
You better believe
it's not better to eat your dinner at the boardroom table.
Well, absolutely. They call it the bed sheets and spreadsheets conundrum. So
That's a nice one.
it's a problem where you've actually got to balance this off. And this is one of the other tips that that the experts in family businesses talk about, and this is about having a family constitution. So a set of rules by which you say, what sort of discussions do we have at home? What sort of discussions do we have at work? How do we deal with the rules of, okay, I'm going to promote a family member? What opportunities does that give to other staff in the business? What sort of opportunities does it give? If I'm looking for a job and I went to go and have a look at a business that's a family business, can I ever be a general manager? Could I ever be a CEO of that business, or is that completely locked out? So these are the sorts of questions you can actually ask people, and they are written down in very successful businesses. They're written down in constitutions, in family constitutions, which are about the rules of succession, the rules of employment, when you will stay and when you will go. what you'll talk about in family meetings, what you'll include other staff in, what you won't include other staff in, and these are the sorts of rules. Again, it is the rules that are the backbone of very successful family companies.
All right, we'll take a break. 131873 if anybody has any questions for Danny or indeed wants to share their own family business story. We'd love to hear it between now and when Danny leaves us this evening. 131873 is the number.
You're listening to the Courses and Career Show with Danny Bielik. Thanks to Management Consultancy International. Go to mci.edu.au.
Yeah, Danny Bielik from MCI joins us. We're talking about family businesses this evening. 131873 or tgb.com. Click on feedback if you want to have your say, want to share a story. Danny, are we beyond the point now where it's sons that automatically inherit the family business?
Yeah, look, we definitely are. We had, once upon a time, family businesses were often trades-related businesses, so it might have been somebody who shoes horses, it might have been somebody who made buggy whips, it was often a lot of trades. And if you remember looking in the old white pages, you would have seen such and such and sons.
Yes.
And that's typically the way that trades were passed on to the next generation. It's a way that wealth was preserved in families, and to be quite frank, it was also a way of making sure that your kids had jobs.
It was a bit like the old primogeniture rule with inheritance in a way, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. So now we're finding that as Australia has moved away from a lot of trades-based stuff and manufacturing and whatever, that women are starting to become more important in family businesses as they have in business generally. But in fact, 70% of family businesses are actually considering a woman for the position of CEO. So this has changed a lot as family situations have changed. But in fact, in contrast, the proportion of women CEOs globally, that includes all businesses, is only 3%. But in family businesses, women are strongly represented in management, with 22% comprising the top ranks in family businesses, and that compares with only 12.9% globally, so almost double the representation of women in family businesses. So, and that may be I'd be really interested to hear from callers about whether you've got women represented in family businesses, whether they're sitting in the background doing the books for a bloke tradie out there, or whether they're fronting up a cafe, or whether they're a senior manager in a large organisation. I think really, there is an understanding that's come from last generation into this generation that sons don't need to be treated differently from daughters, that you can expect of a daughter in your family that they will rise through the ranks of your company if it's a medium to large size company, and they should have as equal a right as a son to be able to take over the reins at a later stage if that's the plan for the family business.
On that issue you mentioned before about time to let go, I mean, you give the case study of, say, Harry Triguboff. Now he's rocking along at 82 years old, but no one lives forever, even the great Harry Triguboff. No. Now, he does have a succession plan in mind, but do a lot of family businesses leave it really too late?
Yeah, look, and it really is probably the biggest problem for family businesses, and this is where even the most successful family businesses will actually fall over, and it is about this issue of having a succession plan. Succession plan means what happens next. How do I, and you've got to think about it in terms of what's in it for the proprietor as well. How do I retire and feel good about this? How do I retire and make sure that there is still wealth in the family, that my legacy lives on, that employment continues for my staff, that employment continues for the family? And it really is an issue now with so many companies. 59% don't intend to pass the business on to a family member. So sometimes succession can look like passing something on to a family member. Sometimes succession can look like hiring a professional manager and stepping back a little bit and continuing on to allow the professional management to build the wealth in the business. Sometimes it can also look like selling the business, and we've seen a huge amount of those sorts of acquisitions in Australia, and it's continuing to accelerate.
Take some calls. Judy, hi.
Oh, hi, Michael. Hi, Danny. I run a small business, and whenever I look at wanting to step back and hand the business over, I'm always told that I am the business. So it's very frustrating because I don't know how to step back. My clients always call me if they're looking for consultants to work for them, and I don't know how to step back and put somebody else in that role.
Judy, what sort of business are you in?
Marketing consulting.
Marketing consulting. And do you have a lot of people who work for you as well?
Yes, I do. I have contractors. I have 8 to 10 contractors that work for me.
Okay, and Judy, do you have any other family working in your business as well?
No, I don't.
Okay. So, I mean, this is actually a classic business problem, and it's, you are the personality and you're what brings in the business and you're what drives the business.
Correct.
And I guess, I mean, it really is, this is actually, I mean, it's the problem with the dentist's son's teeth, isn't it? This is actually a classical marketing problem.
Yes.
So what you really need probably is some marketing advice, and I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs.
That's right, even though I'm a marketer.
And so there you go. So here's a classic example of somebody, Michael, who is a professional marketing person who gives advice to other people. But here is a problem where Judy, correct me if I'm wrong, you are so deep in the business that actually it's very difficult for you to step back and go, well, what's right for the health of this business, and how do I work on transitioning this out and make sure that I can continue to get new customers and continue to get new business? Is that right?
Correct. It's correct.
Can I recommend something that Family Business Australia recommends, and that is looking at a really good transition plan. So sitting down, writing out a 5-year plan, 3-year, 5-year plan. What is it you want to do, and who is it going to take to actually get you there? Do you need help from outside? Do you need some outside advice? Do you need people to help you work on this on a monthly or bi-monthly basis? Do you need to engage something that looks like a formal board? It doesn't have to be a formal board with 10 guys in grey suits sitting around the table. It just doesn't have to be. MCI's board is only 4 people, and 2 of them are me and the owner. So, we've managed to run an organisation that way. For a small marketing business with 8 to 10 consultants, I would say you probably just need a little bit of consulting help. Family Business Australia is certainly a really good place to start.
That's good to know.
Because
it is really difficult because, I can have the option of potentially having one of my contractors buy the business, but they may not have the finances to do that. And I personally feel that it's better to have somebody who's in the industry, who knows the industry. It's a very specific industry we work in.
Well, it is and it isn't, because this is, it wouldn't matter if it was a chicken shop. You'd actually have the same problem. Do people come in because it's your chicken recipe?
Yeah.
So the other sorts of things, there are plenty of these sorts of support networks out there. 2 I can highly recommend: the CEO Institute, which is actually not an institute; it is it's a support group for people in businesses large and small. The other one, which I recommend that you speak to, is called Tech, the Executive Connection. It is actually very lonely being a business owner. It is a very, very difficult thing to do, because at the end of the day, you may actually take home less money, and this is something for people to think about. You may take home less money than if you actually had a job. And nobody would care less.
That is correct, yes.
So these organisations have very structured ways of getting together with people in similar sorts of situations and having facilitated discussions about how you can deal with these sorts of issues. There is no one answer. You're not going to have a consultant come in and write you a paper, and in 30 days you'll have the answer. This will take you some time to work through for yourself.
Well, I think it will, because it's taken me about 2 years to try and get some concept of what I can do. I mean, I find it's interesting that people say I'm the business, yet I have people in there working for me, and they're in there, but I guess they say they're in there because I recommended them to be in there.
I want all small business people to think about this, Judy, because you're in a similar sort of situation. If you are the business, then that means you can't get sick, you can't go on holidays, and you can't retire. That's actually a very dangerous place to be in for any business owner, and it's very stressful. I would highly recommend that you have a chat with some external people. Those 3 resources are a really, really great place to start.
And what were those names again, Danny, those groups?
So Family Business Australia, the CEO Institute, and Tech, the Executive Connection. The Executive Connection is absolutely fantastic. They've got people who will chair and facilitate rotate meetings every month. They will have people come out to your business once a month. The chair of your little group will come out and hold you accountable for making sure that certain things happen. It's actually a really great discipline.
That was a good call, because that Judy there, speaking on behalf, I think, of a lot of the small family businesses listening to us now. Just before you go then, Danny, all of that advice incredibly sound. Is there ever a time, though, when it is time to call time on a family business? There are situations, are there not, where handing it down is not a viable option, trying to divest it is just not viable, the circumstances, I mean, is there time to call time?
Yeah, look, there is, and again, it all depends on individual business circumstances, but you have to think about the collateral damage of that, of letting your customers go, letting your staff go, all of those sorts of things. So, I would say that if a business has been successful, particularly for any period of time, there is nothing to say that it can't continue to be successful. Look, at the end of the day, one of the purposes of a business, of a company, a proprietary limited company, is that it actually doesn't matter who the individuals are in it. It will continue beyond the natural life of a person. So with a little bit of help, a lot of these businesses can succeed. They can be passed on to other people. They can continue to create wealth for individuals. They can continue to create wealth for the Australian economy and continue to employ people.
That was worthwhile. Good discussion. Thank you, Danny.
Thanks, Michael.
Danny Bielik, you'll be back with us again same time next week.